In a couple of minutes, I'm going to have a group of scouts coming over here. They're from Trail Life, and they're going to help me rebuild some engines. Now, I'm not an expert on engines, especially the internal part of engines and how they work, but I believe I diagnosed this engine and the other one I have out back, and I have the parts to rebuild them. So I'm hoping not to embarrass myself or give these guys a time that's not worthwhile. So hopefully we're able to see two engines running at the end of this video here. We'll see how we do, but got the workshop all cleared out and we'll see how we do. We have a 27 horsepower V-Twin Briggs, and then we have something like a 20 horsepower single cylinder Briggs, and both had, well, this one for sure had two blown connecting rods. The other one I haven't cracked into, but I believe it's a blown connecting rod. All right, let's see what we can do with a group of boys who are willing to help.
Hi everybody, my name is Kyle. The channel is called Kyle by the Creek. We have Trail Life here with us today, and we're going to do our best to get everybody involved and rebuild potentially two engines. So I hope that sounds interesting to you. Come along for the journey.
All right, we got everybody inside the shed. We're just taking a close look at these engines here. So this engine had really catastrophic failure on it. I posted a video about it on Instagram, so you might have saw that. I can see carnage already, so there we go. Yep, there's the bottom of some connecting rods, just absolutely obliterated. But it had two blown connecting rods. These are the pistons right here, and we had tons of shrapnel inside the engine. But it might be a viable engine, it might not be. It'll at least be educational, so we'll get to work on that. And here's the sump of everything, and as far as I can tell, no damage on it. Little nicks and things like that, but nothing seems cracked. And we have to do a little bit of muriatic acid here to get some of the aluminum that's come off and is now attached to the steel. So we'll work on that, and hopefully I got all the right parts, and we'll see if we can get a bunch of hands involved with help with rebuilding this engine. All right, so nice having Trail Life here. Actually have someone holding the camera, but what we're going to do is we're going to use some muriatic acid to kick things off today. We'll do a little chemical reaction for everybody and get some of the aluminum off the crankshaft here. So a simple way to do this, you know, it doesn't have to be too complicated, but just wrap the crankshaft area there with a paper towel, and then I'm just gonna lightly put some muriatic acid on there. But the paper towel just keeps the area wet, is all this does, instead of it just running off. And we're doing this outside under the tarp, but there's plenty of ventilation because this does create a lot of fumes. All right, these guys are helping me out a lot. We're getting the surfaces cleaned up. Got a new head gasket on this head. We're gonna reuse the head gasket on that side. It's looking good. We've been inspecting things. Again, we see little surface cracks maybe, but again, for education, I think we're doing okay. So these guys are holding some of the new parts. Yep. These are the new parts here, right? Here's the old piston, snapped connecting rod. Yours is the piston that isn't broken, but the other one, where's the other one? This one's got a good bite taken out of it. And that came from this connecting rod slamming into it. But pretty interesting. Who's got the rings on? Yours has the rings. So one thing we'll have to do with this, I already did it on that piston, but this one we have to steal the rings from this piston and transfer them to the new ones. So here are the nice shiny new ones. Everyone's just inspecting some new. It's always nice to have new things, but you can tell they, for whatever reason, these get sold and they don't have the rings, which is probably not the best idea because I'm using a engine that had some blown up parts. But we're gonna put those rings on the new one. So that's what we're doing here. We got these guys with razor blades cleaning up the sump And oh yeah, here we go. There's the carnage. Yeah, I just gave them all the broken materials to show off. So pretty cool how this engine sustained that damage and it's still somewhat in one piece. But I guess the proof will be in the pudding once we get this thing going. All right, so what we'll do is we'll take the rings off of this piston because we have to transfer them over to the other piston. So again, I'm not an expert at this stuff, but basically what you want to do is you want to go slow and you don't want to crack the ring. So the rings have these openings, obviously, so you can get them on and off. And you just kind of have to pick at it until you can get one end up and over. And then you can work the ring out. So there's one. And then there's two, because you can't have overlap of openings, so you have to stagger the opening of these rings when you reinstall them, because otherwise you would defeat the purpose of you know, creating a good seal. Number two. Those are the ones I was worried about, so at least that's done.
What's the third one, though?
The third one, this is the oil, like the oil ring or the oil seal. And it has kind of a smaller ring, and then it has almost like a springy type ring. And that helps to seal the oil. Yeah, sure. And then hopefully if those are all still good, then it'll keep too much oil from going into the top end. So there we go. Got that done. I'm just going to clean these rings. If you just see what I'm doing, I'm just using the carburetor cleaner. It's basically brake clean.
You got one more behind that GoPro, right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Trying to keep grit and grime out of the engine. Obviously, we don't really want that, so just...
How many times a week do you usually work on this?
I'm out here every day.
Every day?
So after work, I try to get in about an hour of hobby work.
How long does it
and then on the
take?
weekend, I do more. To rebuild these, I got these rings cleaned off now. From what we're just talking to the guys about how to put them back, like how do you know what order to do. You just get good at kind of remembering the reverse order of things. So you kind of have like a retaining, and I might mess up the terminology at times, but like you have a retaining ring, then you have this more flexible, I believe, is like an oil seal. And this one's a little easier to put on. Yeah, flux capacitors. If you don't know what it is, you just call it a flux capacitor. That's right. I'm trying to get at the sandwich.
Guys aren't that durable.
So you have like ring.
Hey.
So we're just working on this oil ring here, realizing you have to do the springy one first, and then you put in the solid steel rings around it. Here's a little pin for you. So I was able to get this one after a little trial and error. I'm looking at everything closely, but sometimes you're doing this stuff and you're almost convincing yourself, I got this all wrong, or maybe I ordered the wrong part, and then all of a sudden it comes together.
We got it now.
Yep. Just getting in the top ring on this piston. Not too bad, as long as you go nice and slow and just work it around, and looks like you pretty much got it. All right, so we're about to install this piston. This is the number 2 piston, and then we're kind of joking around with the guys. I just sat here for a minute and YouTubed it so that I don't mess it up. But with the number 2 piston, you want the number 2 on the connecting rod facing that way, but then you have the piston itself has an arrow that's supposed to point to the flywheel. So basically this setup will look like this: arrow pointing to the flywheel, number 2 up. It's going to go in like that. So we're going to install, and you can keep the camera rolling, we'll install this piston pin, which is like a really simple connection, and then this retaining ring, which I might have to get like a screwdriver to get it in there, but I actually just got it. It's good to have bad flatheads.
Yes.
They get used as hammers a lot. So I don't have all nice tools for sure. So just using a little Marvel mystery oil to lubricate the top end here. Got my little applicator, so you can just do that. You can kind of hit all this stuff just before you get it in the cylinder walls. Just want to make sure there's good lubrication. As you can see, the cylinder looks great. So we're going to try to install this piston now. All right, so we have a piston ring compressing sleeve on here.
Can I catch it?
And then I think I should be able to hold it. And then I'll just lightly tap. Kind of feel a little resistance, so I might back that up. You just want to go slow. Like, the worst thing you could do is go a little too fast and break one of the rings. You know, so I just felt a little resistance there and I didn't want to push it.
Does that have to be completely flat with it?
Yeah. Try it again. Yeah. Take 3.
3 times sharp.
Let's see. Not happy.
Hey, I'm wondering, is this something in here that's hitting and getting stuck? Or
No, it's what's actually hitting is the ring on the piston is hitting the top end of the head.
Compressed it enough for
And
some reason?
yeah, it's like one little lip of it is sticking out. Yep. Yeah. 2.
Yeah, the 2 is supposed to be with the 2.
2 is with the 2. The arrow points to the
Is this
fly.
side of a 2 too?
The other side is a 1.
Oh, okay.
So when I do this cylinder, the 1 will be out, and this one, the 2 will be out. Let's see. There we go. See? Success. Just gotta go slow sometimes. I know it's annoying, but better than breaking something.
It'll be a lot slower if you have to wait for another part.
Yeah, so that will slide up and down, but you can tell now it has resistance.
There's the piston going up and down.
Yeah, so the piston will go up and down. You know, just a little lube in there. So when we install it, it's moving pretty good now. So yeah, that's. Oh, and I have to clean up the surface too of these, so I could do that too.
Is this paper one too right here?
Yeah, it is a paper one.
They're all shiny now.
So,
None of these are fun.
yeah, it's they're
Hey.
naturally mixing the water.
Well, you're good. You could talk. We're gonna see if we can get the second piston in. This is actually piston number 1. Nope.
It's stuck.
Yep. How many times did it take with the other cylinder?
Third.
3 or 4.
Wait, did we try it upside down? It
wasn't third time.
already?
All right, let's try this again. No go.
You got it?
No. Try again.
That means like
one side of it just keeps freezing over, and the other side keeps heating, and the other side keeps freezing over.
All right, what is this? Take number 3?
Take number 2. Oh, okay.
I think you're right. Take number 3.
Nope. Can't really get through the first ring. Is not. It's doing the oil ring, but then once it gets to that middle one, it's binding.
Is this what you lift like heavy engines up with and stuff?
Yes, I do use that a lot. I actually pick up the whole like front end of a tractor.
But we just had them assemble.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone this simple.
They didn't do a great job with it. I mean, the roof
Oh,
leaked
really?
first year, and one of the doors doesn't close levelly. So.
There we go. Yeah, that was just like the last one. Hopefully our head gasket looks good. I left the head gasket.
And these are the wires, electricity and stuff.
Oh yeah, so this coil with the copper wires is what's called a stator. Some people call it an alternator because that's what you have in your car, but these are called stators, and they do the same thing. So there's a metal flywheel, we'll get to it in a minute, that spins around this, and it has magnets. As the magnets pass by these,
Magnets.
yeah. So well, they're just magnets, and this is how electricity is made, and they spin. As it spins and goes past it, creates current somehow, and then we get AC voltage that comes out through there, and then usually most things like the batteries that are on these to start these engines are DC voltage, so then you have a converter, a rectifier that changes the AC voltage to DC voltage. It's not that complicated. It sounds complicated.
Yeah.
And then it charges your battery, runs your headlights, and your PTO, which does your blade engagements and stuff like that. But yeah, these are.
A moving magnetic field produces electricity.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty simple, and it all sits under the flywheel. Yeah, it is smart. Yeah, it's a good design. So this, I want to see if I have that oil seal because I did find something. The only one oh no, this is all right. This is the only one I'm able to replace. Yeah, this larger one I couldn't find. Or I ordered it and then they refunded me, so I guess they didn't have it. But yeah, that was fine.
That must have been annoying.
It might be warmer out here than in there.
Yeah, it is right now. Alright, well it's not perfectly clean yet. I wonder if I can use a little bit of sandpaper. Alright, so this is how the muriatic acid did. You can see it didn't get all of it. And I could leave it on for a little bit longer and it would get it, but we'll just use a little fine sandpaper and go gentle. Oh, you could film. I got, I think, another volunteer to help with holding it.
Because we live 5 miles away from here.
Oh, you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Kyle goes to our church, so that's how we got the connection.
You guys go to the same church?
Yeah. I have his oldest son in my Sunday school class.
I figure out the best way to do it.
Is that better?
Oh no.
How is it supposed to go?
Well, I'm not sure the order of events. Like, I hope that I don't have to take the pistons back out because that was a pain, but I might if this doesn't fit. This is sort of the trial and error of doing this stuff. Oh well. All right. I already popped that out. So we'll have to do that. But that'll give me a lot of room, so I might as well.
Should we pop them both out?
Yeah, I think I can get by with one. There we go.
But where is this piston supposed to be?
So it's going to connect like that.
Next to that part.
Mm-hmm. And the other, yeah, they both can connect down there. So with that out of the way,
Yeah, that's how
I had to do it that way. There was no, I don't think there was a way around it. So what do you think, 4 times on the?
Maybe it'll go easy. It's been in there once, maybe it'll pop right in again.
Kind of feel like 3.
The engine.
You should do it for 25 though.
20 horses.
Maybe it's nice to be able to.
Come on, let's do it. maybe.
It went in on the second
Yay! Got it.
One more hit.
It went right where it was supposed to.
Yep, that's good. Called rod caps,
It's amazing.
and they connect the connecting rod
That's pretty amazing.
over top of the crankshaft. So this is like the aluminum that we were getting off with the muriatic acid basically came from this on the old part.
Shadows on the way.
This is the stuff I work hard at editing out. Like, no one wants to watch crit, you know.
This is where montage comes in.
Yeah. You need some nice music over top of it.
And these cylinders are opposing each other. There's engines where they're all lined up in a row.
Yes.
Straight line.
Yeah, they call this a V-Twin because it's set up in a V.
V-shape, yeah.
They do it. Briggs makes. They don't really make them anymore, but they used to make the opposed twins. And they're split. Yeah, they're firing like that.
No, not at that
Really
point.
hard to
Is that?
spin it
We
with
aren't
hand, but we'll put the flywheel on it, and that will make it easier. But I do want to make sure it spins freely before we seal this thing up. Good chance to clean it. See, you can kind of tell when you knock out the key.
50,000 years. Consecutive life sentences.
There you go.
50 consecutive life
I think we got it.
sentences. Once you die, you will be charged with
No, you can
consecutive
spin it and
Now
stuff?
we can spin it, but I'll probably put the nut on it so that it stays put. Okay, so let's see if this thing. There we go.
Yeah, very exciting.
Pistons going up and down.
And you can see how they do it at different times. So actually that's very successful. You know, so what you know now is that there's no binding, nothing's loose, everything sounds good, everything's moving up and down. Well, I lost my cameramen. Those boys from Trail Life were a lot of fun. They really helped me out. They were very engaged, parents too. Hopefully they got a little bit of an education on small engines, and I have no idea how this footage is going to come across, but it was a lot of fun on my end too. I haven't ever had a chance to do that with a group of people, let alone Trail Life. If you don't know much about Trail Life, it's a Christian version of Boy Scouts in a way, so it's just a scouting troop. And I have a local connection. One of the dads that has some kids involved goes to my church, and so we've been chatting about that. And they had a small engine badge that they could have earned, and they really didn't have any way to do that. So that's when one of the dads reached out to me and said, hey, would you mind showing the kids how to do some engine work? So we had pretty good success. It was kind of slow. You know, they were with me from 9 to 12 today on a Saturday, and we got to like half of the engine rebuild. But I don't know what you caught at the very end there. I got the flywheel on, and the pistons move up and down, everything's smooth. And so now I'm just gonna start installing the rest of it. I have the tappets in, we're gonna do the camshaft, and then we'll get the gasket on and the sump cover on and bolted down, and then we'll start doing the two heads and you know, moving along. So the cam has a timing mark there, and on this ring that's removable, it slots only into one spot, but there's a timing mark there, and you just have to make sure that those are lining up. It'll look just like that. Probably hard to see on camera, but that's the camshaft. The tappets are already in. It's connected to the governor there, so that's all looking good. All right, I like these kits that come with the sump gasket because I just don't like using Permatex that much, especially for this part of the job. I'd much rather have a paper gasket. And I know I could put a little bit of Permatex here, but I'm actually out anyway, and it's so cold, I don't know if it would really flow out of the tube. So we're gonna go with that. That's how it's supposed to be done. So we'll put the sump on now. All right, these are 3 T30 screws that hold on this cover, and it's nice to remove that from the sump when you're going to set it on the engine, because then you can line up the little doohickey, I forget what it's called, but you can make the alignment a lot easier, so you're not like clunking against metal when you're trying to get these bolts in. If you don't have it lined up perfectly, I'll be able to show you in a minute, then this just won't go on the engine. Okay, those aren't budging. Okay, I'm gonna try to put it on without doing that. Alright, I used the impact gun and I got that plate off. Those Torx screws were in there pretty good. But that allowed me to clean all this up, and especially this oil screen, which was completely clogged. So I'm glad I got into that. That's going to make getting the engine cover on this thing a lot easier, because there's an alignment that you have to make with this little doohickey, like I called it. And it's a lot easier to do on the top end. You put the sump cover on, then you drop this thing on, then you drop these components on there, and that's a lot easier from that side. Still doesn't look like it's on there good. Why is that? There we go. All right, so I don't know if you could see that, but the weight of the engine on the flywheel was pushing the crankshaft up. That probably came across really poorly on camera, but now with it sideways, the sump is flush onto the rest of the case. Okay, that's good. My sump gasket kit came with new sump bolts. Not sure that's totally necessary, but that's what it came with. So you better bet we're gonna use them. A little Marvel mystery oil here. Oops, I gotta do the screen. The screen goes like that. There we go. So much easier going at it that way than trying to get all that lined up while this is all attached. I've done it before, but you kind of have to get lucky. That's a much easier process. We have all the surfaces cleaned up now for the valve covers, and we're going to start putting in the push rods. I'm going to start by just removing the entire rocker, because I'm going to just see if this is the case, but I bet all the clearances are good on these rockers. And if I just drop in the correct push rods and then reinstall these, it might be correct. I don't know, it's worth a shot. So here are the push rods. You have an aluminum one and a steel one. And the steel one goes on your exhaust side. Here's your exhaust. Here's the intake. So yeah, I think I said that right. So the steel one goes on the exhaust, and the aluminum one goes on the intake, so it does matter. And I'm thinking we can just put these back together, possibly. And we'll check the clearances, obviously, but it'd be nice if I don't have to set the valves. I kind of would imagine I'm going to be setting them, but we'll see what happens. Here, I'll get you a different view here. So with this setup, just bolting down those rockers, the valves seem way too tight. So that should have a little play to it. And then I just did the other side, and this one's too loose, and then in the other rotation position, this one's still too tight. So I gotta set all these valves. Looked it up, and it should be 5/1000s that we're setting it to, so for both exhaust intake. So we'll get that done. Alright, making really good progress. Got the valve covers on, got the push rods and valves all set up, and I'm just going to let some of this RTV dry up. And then we have the throttle plate to do, which, you know, one of the springs came off, and I'm not too confident about that, so I got to look up some videos. And anyway, I'll probably get back to this in the next day or so. Another couple days have gone by, and we're going to get our throttle, base, and governor controls and linkages all hooked back up here. I had to connect some of these springs that had fallen off when I took this off, and I just wanted to look all that up and get a chance to make sure that I'm going to hook this up correctly. So my main confusion was with these two springs, but you have a idle governor spring and then just like a main governor spring, and this is the way they're supposed to hook up. So this goes on the governor shaft itself, and the base is going to bolt on to the heads of the engine, and they have two screws or bolts to hold that on. And then it has a 7/16 here that goes on the governor shaft, but I'm going to adjust the governor once I get the carburetor on, because I'm going to, for the most part, want the throttle linkage connected to the carburetor when I do that. But let me drop this camera down a little bit, see if you can see in here, just to notice how these springs work. So again, here's the idle spring for the governor, and it just sets your idle speed. And then there's a spring in the back that connects to the throttle, and the throttle linkage connects here, and all that does is just applies a tension from the spring on the governor. So it doesn't connect to the carburetor, but connects to how the governor acts, and that connects to the carburetor. So hopefully that's somewhat clear. Here's just another view from the back side, if that's helpful. If you can see that spring is connected here. There's the big spring. You can see how it's connected. There's the back side of where that big spring is connected. This is where your linkage will go from the carburetor. It links there and it goes up to where the carburetor sits. So we'll tighten down these bolts and then we'll put the carburetor on. Okay, I don't know if this is the best view for you, but this is what we're doing. Okay, so I do have a linkage here for the carburetor, and I'm going to hook that on to the part that comes off the governor. I'm going to do that first. That's what I'm doing right now. Probably just looks like I'm struggling, but there we go. That's linked on. And then the carburetor will just bolt on, but since I have the air box and everything, I'm probably going to need to get one of my adjustable wrenches instead of using my impact driver. Now, one other thing, I just took the bowl off the carburetor just to see how this thing is, and it is pristine. Super clean inside. So I just removed the float and inspected the needle, and everything looks great, so I'm not worried about that, at least for now. Okay, now that we have our carburetor hooked up here to our governor linkages, I can make the governor adjustment. So this is pretty simple. Right now everything's loose, and this governor shaft can be rotated. It can be rotated both directions right now. What I want to do is I want to rotate it all the way clockwise, and I want to make sure that the throttle is wide open, which is down. So throttle pinned down, governor rod twisted all the way to the right. There's a 7/16 nut or jam nut on this, and you want to tighten that down. And it's all the way clockwise. Throttle is wide open. There you go. That's done. We are just about ready to button up this engine. So we have the shroud and grass screen and all that sort of stuff. So let's start trying to put some of this back together. There we go. Just struggling with this shroud, and I noticed that this valve cover, this is where it gets the pulse for the fuel pump, that we have a crack in that. So I don't know if you can see this crack right here. Well, that's split, but luckily I bought a pack of these things a little while ago, so I'm going to replace that now. There we go. Okay, let's do this grass screen next. So here's the grass screen. It has this square thing that goes on that first. So I'm just going to put some of the bolts of the grass screen on and just get some of them started by hand. These are T30 Torx. Got this final top cover, which doesn't really do much, but it does look nicer. And it's got 4 5/16. And this engine is pretty fancy, so I guess we have an oil cooler on it. That's kind of cool. Looks like the one I have on my Suzuki Quad. This is the fuel pump here. airbox cover here. Obviously we're missing one of the factory wing nuts that goes on there, but someone installed a 7/16, that's not so bad. Let's see if I can find another one of these. Too bad the sticker's coming apart, but alright, I still have no spark plugs, so I gotta do spark plugs. One other problem that came up while I was repairing this engine was the dipstick broke. This was all worn out and it was getting bent as part of the rebuild. It was just like we were moving it out of the way and I was just noticing it being really flimsy. And one time it bent and I was like, oh, that's gonna snap. So I just broke it because, you know, I don't want that loose in the engine. But this is kind of an interesting dipstick with, it's got like a little Z-bend in it, if you can see that. And I have a ton of extra dipsticks. But none of them have a Z-bend in it. So I have to figure out if I have one that's the right length for this. Oh no, they do. Oh, okay. This should be fine. Yeah. Okay. Here's the broken one on top, and then the new part on the bottom. So yeah, we're fine. Okay, well, we have the engine all put back together. Everything is attached, buttoned up. I don't have any oil in it, so that's the next step. We'll add some oil, and then we're going to talk about making this thing fire. So will this thing run? That's the big question. Did Trail Life help me out here? Did I help them out? Was it a big waste of time and money investing into an engine with 2 blown connecting rods? I think there's a big payoff with this 27 horsepower V-Twin. If I can get this going, we can put this on a pretty nice 0 turn, I think. All right, let's add some oil. This is a 724cc engine. It takes 64 ounces of oil. That's 2 quarts. Seems like the 25 horsepowers take the same amount. Seems like the 724cc can be a 25 horsepower, but this one's rated at 27. Take that for what it's worth. But 2 quarts of oil. Pretty simple. I have the engine all set up on the bench here. Since these 2 pieces of wood aren't connected, I figured I'd get the crankshaft to go and split between those pieces of wood so we can keep the engine nice and level. I got a road sign here going underneath the exhaust because we have just open exhaust right now. No muffler. We're hooked up to an auxiliary tank of fuel, and I sort of have the engine strapped down. I'm sure I'm going to have to get my hands on it to stabilize it, but we're going to try to get this thing to fire off. Alright, here we go. Sounds good. Don't have the choke hooked up. Let's see if I can operate the choke. Before that runs dry, I think we'll do a little shot of carb spray. It's gonna be loud. Let's get some ear protection. That's a good sign. Sounds pretty good. Well, it's just running on the carb spray. It doesn't seem to be getting fuel, so I'm just going to disconnect this whole fuel madness. No sense of dealing with that if it's not really going to run off it.
That's great. We'll do it one more time. That is some good stuff. I think that's the bare minimum qualifications for a Will It Run video. Big shout out to Trail Life who helped me out with this, and I hope I helped them learn a thing or two about engines, especially what they look like and how they function on the inside. Kind of a unique experience, and an engine like this, I don't know if a shop would do that type of work, so this is some pretty rare stuff. It would be pretty expensive for a shop to commit to doing that job, let alone the cost of the parts and then the labor. You could definitely see why someone would just go and try to find either a used engine or even a new one and put it on their machine instead of doing what I just did. So this is not finished. You know, there's going to be a lot of testing that I'm going to need to do on this engine to see if it's a viable engine to put on a machine. I just don't know. I went through a lot, so it needs a lot of testing, I think. But in the end, if it does what it's supposed to, and it tests well, and it works great and everything, it could work on a machine. I'm hoping to try it out on a 0 turn. But yeah, this was fun. I don't get to do a lot of this stuff. I think the last time I opened up an engine and got into the inside of it like that was last winter, so it's kind of a perfect winter project. But as I was, hitting this with some starting fluid, I'm realizing that, I don't have the fuel solenoid hooked up, so it's really not going to allow the fuel to flow, and just running off of starting fluid is about all it's going to do. So I'll really need to hook this up, have this hooked up to a harness and all that sort of stuff to see if it's running right. But I think it sounds good. I think it's running on 2 cylinders. Obviously it's not running long enough for me to do any tests at all. Just the fact that it's not bound up, it has compression, it works. So I'm calling that a success. All right, everyone, I hope you tune in next time. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos. Thanks, we'll see you in the next one. All right, one more time.